You
How did
typed,
that happen?
you obviously had a change. Have you swapped IT?
No.
Have you swapped
We're live
IT?
on YouTube now.
Okay. Thank you.
I've just changed your name to Elaine Francis as well, Councillor.
Okay. Ready to go?
Yep.
Good evening, members and officers. It is now 7 o'clock. My name is Councillor Laura Lorman, and I'm the chairman of the Wellingborough Town Council, of the Shouted Town Council. This is the first meeting of the Future Finance and Governance Committee of the Town Council, and I would like to welcome everybody to this meeting. Members and officers, could I please ask you to mute your microphones? Otherwise there will be interference during the meeting. And may I remind you of the virtual meeting protocol that you have previously been provided with, and that this meeting is now live. So I would like to welcome any members of the public who are joining us tonight. You will be aware that this meeting is being held virtually, and I would be grateful for your patience should there be any technical issues, which I'm sure we won't be having. For the benefit of those observing, the Shadow Town Council is using the Zoom platform to bring this meeting. Firstly, can I do a roll call? Councillors, can you please confirm that you are present? Councillor Allibone?
Present, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Francis?
Present, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Henley?
Present.
Councillor G. Lorman?
Present, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Ward?
Present, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Wetherill?
Present, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I would like to turn to the agenda, and the first task is to actually elect a chairman for the position of chairman for the Finance and Governance Committee, which is your agenda item number 2. Do I have any nominations for the position of chairman, please? If you would please raise your electronic. Sorry, Councillor.
Sorry, I just said happy to propose Councillor Graham Lorman, Madam Chairman.
Okay. Is there a seconder?
Yes, Madam Chairman, happy to second.
Thank you. Do we have any other nominations? No, I take that as a no. So could you please, all those in favour, if you unmute yourself, all those in favour, please say aye.
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 Anybody abstaining? Please say aye. No. Anybody against? Please say aye or indicate in the chat. Thank you. So with that, members, I'm very pleased to extend my congratulations to Councillor Graham Lorman. And I will now hand over the chairmanship of the Finance and Governance Committee to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman of the Town Council. First of all, have we got chat disabled? I think we have, haven't we? So we haven't got that facility. But the first item is apologies. Officers received any apologies, please? No?
We're all here, Chair.
Okay. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest not, I presume we can use the Borough Council website declarations as our basis here. Any, and Mr. Darcy's nodding, any declarations of interest not on the website? Okay, thank you very much. So the main item is a report on the revenue budget and precept for the Town Council for 21-22. Do you want to add anything, Mr. Darcy, to your report?
Thank you, Chair. You've some options there in front of you around what services could potentially be part of the Town Council for 21-22. Again, we've kept these quite limited, not dissimilar to last year, due to the elections being delayed and obviously trying to ensure that we get members in place for the Town Council, working with the elected members of the new Northamptonshire Unitary Council as to what services the Town Council, along with other town councils in Northamptonshire, will take on for next year. So again, happy to discuss anything around these options in the paper. But what I would just add is, as part of a shadow exec briefing around the budget this morning, Rob Bridge is trying to do some work. He's met with Cornwall Council about what they've done regarding devolution to town and parish councils. They would very much like to engage the town and parishes next year and look at what services do transfer. And that might be more than just Wellingborough, Kettering and Corby town councils. That could be what other parishes can take on as well. So we're looking for limited options at present, but that doesn't mean services can't transfer early into the new financial year as the unitary kicks off. So just bear that in mind, that's why we've kept the options quite limited for now. So happy to take any questions though as we go into this paper.
Thank you, Sean. So perhaps it's worth doing this in two stages. One, the budget for which we've got on Appendix 2 for 21-22, and then look at any further more long-term options that might feed into the process. So we've all got Appendix 2. Open it up. Any comments from members on the appendix and individual items? Councillor Laura Lorman's hand I can see.
Thank you, Chairman. I refer to Appendix 2, and there are various items where I would please like to have, excuse me, where I would like to have an explanation. We've got some large items on there. What is now please included in the £102,000 salaries? That is the first one. The second one, election expenses. I know we can't avoid them, but why are they 22,000? Is that akin of what was really expected? What's the next one? Just a second. Refreshments, £500. I know it's not massive, but what is that item, please? We also have £500 for advertising, £6,000 for IT, which is an extremely sore subject. We have obviously the rent of an office, but we also have another £1,000 room hire for meetings. I presume whichever accommodation we will be renting, this is in the event that we need larger for 20 odd councillors plus officers and members of the public. But I would like clarification. And then we've got an item of £4,980 for town twinning, if that could please be broken down for me. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Before Sean answers a couple of those, I mean, I must say I picked up the salaries as well, and I looked at the Society of Local Council Clerks, and for a council with an income up to 250,000, they were recommending a pay scale that was about 30 to 35,000, not the pay scale that that was looked at in the previous committee. And also, I think it's worth mentioning, it comes to an office, that it's an ambition, I think, and we have to put it like that at the moment, for the town council to take over Swans Fall House. So it may switch around, but obviously that's a long term. So perhaps if you'd like to comment on those points together, Mr. Darcy.
Yeah, so
You want me to answer some of these, Sean, or
well, I'll give it a stab and maybe you
okay.
can be on if that's all right. So touching on the salaries, obviously this was part of the report that went to the staffing committee, and that was the option that was decided around a full-time responsible town clerk at a quite a high level, accompanied by potentially a part-time temporary finance officer to support business support effectively. So that the 102,000 was part of that report that got recommended to come to this as part of the precept report. So the 102 comes from there. The next line you queried, I think, was
Elections.
cost. So yeah, the election has just come from, we do charge town and parishes their share of the elections, and that's been agreed at Northamptonshire as well as part of the budget setting process, that even in areas where they don't currently charge parishes and towns, they're going to for 21-22 onwards. So again, this is just an estimated cost based on previous costs of town council this size. So it's an estimate, but it should be fairly accurate. Refreshments is just for odds and sods for me. It's probably not necessary. I think there's an overall comment from NCALC though, is that they feel that this overall budget is quite light. So I think where we've got some smaller items that may or may not be necessary, NCALC would have probably suggested we stuck in a transfer to reserves or a higher contingency to support the budget anyway and increase the precept. So we could adjust the lines that are in here, but actually the amount we don't want to minimise. We'd probably look to, you know, have we got actually enough capacity for next year or not, is a question we've had from NCALC as a recommendation. IT, I think £6,000. I think it's good to have a budget for IT for the town council. We don't know what IT, you know, whether they're going to provide IT to its members and support. So I think £6,000 is, again, it's an estimate. You could argue, is that a little bit light, if anything, especially for year one. And again, these are just year one charges to bear in mind. So the election cost, for example, is a 1 year only, and it would come out of the following year's precept. And then it come back in again in a few years' time when the elections come round again. So that's another thing to bear in mind. Again, £500 advertising is a bit like refreshments. We might need to do some advertising. We want to advertise the town council, and hopefully as it takes services on, we do some advertising around that, but it might be a bit lighter to start, but that might ramp up going forward. Again, sort of renting an office, we're not looking to charge the town council where we don't need to, but we've got a budget built in there that if it's needed, it can be utilised. If not, again, it's just a bit of contingency for the town council should it need it for other purposes. And like you've said, Councillor Lorman, I think room hire, we do need to consider, we might need to use the council chamber, or when we're not using a Zoom facility, for example, if we are opening it up for all the town councillors and members of the public to attend on site going forward, as we sort of come out of COVID, we may need a bigger room, whether that is the Swans Pool House chamber or a different meeting room that we may need to book elsewhere. So again, it's just a bit of a contingency. The town twinning, Fiona might know more of the detail, but that is purely just the BCW's town twinning budget that we propose goes to the town council to take over that function. I don't know if you want to add any detail to that, Fiona.
Yeah, that was the budget we had, like Sean said, Councillor Lorman. And there are certain things broken down in there, like travel to the twin towns, and there is some money in there for grants as well, and any entertaining.
So that will be something for the town council to decide whether it wants to keep issuing the grants. I mean, personally, I think they should be only for the under 18s, and adults should be able to support themselves. But I can understand some hosting if there's a visit, or travel if there's a visit would be needed.
Yeah, I think it will be up to the town council how they would want to use it, but we've just put in the figure that we use.
Any other councillors?
Yeah, there's a number.
Councillor Ellenbone. Sorry.
Well, hang on, Chair. There's a number of councillors who've raised their electronic hand. So I know I did before Councillor Laura Lorman even spoke. And I'm waiting for somebody to pay attention to that, please.
I apologise, Councillor Henley, but I'm not seeing the electronic hands, so that's why.
If you open up the participants folder, you then see them. You'll see myself, Councillor Wetherell, Councillor Francis.
Yeah, normally they would come up with a thing, but they haven't done so on my screen. But as you got the floor, away you go, Councillor.
Thank you. Okay. On the quick question on the staffing, am I presuming that the clerk is full year? And do we have a timescale as to when we're expected to get the clerk in by?
We're aiming to go out as soon as possible, aren't we, and get them in for April, as soon as we can.
And am I right in thinking that when I look at Appendix 1, we have currently, you are telling me that we have basically got £57,000, but we haven't really spent this year?
Yeah.
And there's no, and am I right in thinking there's very little immediate draw on that remaining 57,000?
That's correct, because we did have a 10k allowance from BCW to support the setup, and we're still using a bit of that, and we've got some excess left of that. So there's no call upon that, the rest of that amount that we know of.
Okay, so I get what NCALC is saying about contingency being slightly low. The reality is we will be going out to ask people to pay another £6 or £7 if we go for option 1, but there will be nearly 70k in the pot if we can get the person in starting in April at the budget. And I like Councillor Graham Lorman, was surprised at the scale of the proposed cost that our friends in the staffing committee have felt is sensible. I'm not asking you to comment on that one. I'm just expressing a view that I was surprised
No,
it was quite.
It's a very valid point, Councillor Henley. I think there was quite a bit of debate. There was actually talk of having an even higher level for basically the chief exec of the town council. But I think we agreed on a medium position where if we do grow Wellingborough Town Council to, as Councillor Graham Lorman has said, around the ambition, we probably want to see this in the next few years. We wanted to make sure we got the right person in at the start to do the negotiations with the unitary council, get those services in and get it up and running and take it forward. So I think we've got a good level for that. Obviously, we'll see what interest we get in the role, but we've tried to pitch it about the right level. But like you say, it could have gone either way on that pay grade.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Henley hasn't quoted, but as I looked at the society's list and the schedule for all the pay grades, and it clearly said that any council up to 250,000 was a low LC2, I think it was, rather than LC4. So it did strike me that given the low amount of work at the minute, we were vastly overpaying for the first year. Councillor Weatherall was next.
Thank you, Chair. First question was on the again, it's linked to the salaries question. I wanted to know what was incorporated in there in terms of pension. Is it a standard cost, that what assumptions are we making, and will it have any impact on this council? Will they have to bring any liabilities onto its balance sheet when they have these staff brought in, if they're in the final salary scheme? I don't know whether these next two questions are strictly relevant to this, but I was interested in this is obviously a revenue budget. What's the position on the solvency? Is there any reserves that are going to be transferred across to give the council some financial resilience? And linked to that, is there a cash flow budget as well?
So, first question around pensions. All we've done is assumed an on cost there for NI and pensions. So it's got 30% on the town clerk, 27% on the business/finance officer. So that is quite high, almost accounting for LGPS type rate. However, it will be for the town council to decide whether they can go into an LGPS or whether they create their own pension fund, which would be significantly lower than that. So again, we've got a bit of contingency built in on the on-cost side. With regards to reserves, there's no actual transfer of reserves from the borough council proposed. As we've touched on already, we have got a precept in this financial year that's unspent and carried over, and it is for the town council to put in an amount if we wish to build up those reserves even further. I mean, for information, we did look at a transfer to reserves line going in extra for another 10k, but I decided with the level we've got and the carry forward from this year, we've removed that for now. But it might be something you want to put in once the elections are done and they come out of the precept. It might be a line to build back in the following year, was my perception. But again, for members to have a view on.
Thank you. I mean, I can help with the pensions because the council will be an admitted body and the staff will have a right to join the LGPS. And if it depends whether they're tupied across from the borough or whether they're coming from outside as to whether there's any pension strain or debt, or there's any guarantee from a major, because North Northamptonshire could guarantee the pensions. So, and that's presumably all still to be decided. Councillor Francis.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to make a comment about the salaries as well. Am I right in thinking that it's a done deal now because it's already been discussed at the staffing committee? There's not much we can do. My concern is that if we are in the process that we want to grow this, and the person's role will grow in time, and I would have thought that the salary should reflect the amount of work that they will be taking on gradually. So it should be incremental at some point rather than coming in at quite this high level. So is there anything that we can do, or is it already been agreed?
It's not been agreed because effectively it does need the shadow town council sign off to take full effect. We are, however, trying to go out and recruit based on this. But obviously any input from this group will be taken on board. I think we did debate this quite a lot, and I don't disagree with that view at all, Councillor Francis, in the sense of, are we overpaying someone at the start? However, I think there's almost two roles we expect from them. One is to come in and start the negotiations and hopefully, battle well with the unitary around what services the town wants to take forward and hopefully develop those services. And then the sort of role going forward then when the council's grown is just running the services and doing well with them, developing and developing the town for our residents. So I think it's do we feel that the negotiation part is any less than running the services once they've transferred is a question. Because actually we might want a strong negotiator to get more into the town council and take more ownership of them. So we could argue it is actually just merited as well as it is for running the services going forward. But I agree, we did spend quite a bit of time debating this at the staffing committee. So it'd be good to get views from this committee as well. If there are any concerns with that, we can take them on board.
Yeah, I read the papers of the staff committee. It didn't seem to be given options. That seemed to be just the recommended one. But I think Elaine wanted to come back in.
Yes, just to say that if we are recording our views, I do think that the salary for the town clerk is a tad too high to start off with.
And just to be clear as well, there was a range on that staffing committee band. So I'm not sure what was. Just grab the band. So
yeah, I'm just trying to find that.
It's 50k to 63 effectively, rounding the numbers. So we could say, well, actually it starts lower as they come into post, and like you say, there's scope then to move it up and it could be regraded in the future. So I appreciate we could say, well, we're expecting to take them on the lower end of that scale, depending on experience and skills, and they grow into the higher end as services transfer and they prove themselves.
I would personally feel much more comfortable with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Allibone, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, my first question has already been asked by Councillor Laura Lorman and answered, which was the rent of an office and the room hire. But the question I've got, Northamptonshire County Association of Local Councils. I do remember we had somebody from that organisation at the initial meeting. And my question would be, is this going to be an ongoing subscription? Because I can understand in the first year, obviously, things will need to be tweaked and honed as we go along, and we will need specialist advice. But I think we have to balance out in future years whether any one-off pieces of legal advice would be more competitive if we did those on an ad hoc basis, as opposed to actually subscribing £7,000 a year. Initially, I've got no problem with that, but as we go forward, and most of the teething problems will hopefully have been ironed out, it might not be a very cost-effective way of moving forward.
Yeah, fair point, Councillor Allibone. I think, to be fair, it's quite flexible with NCalc, so you can choose not to take the membership forward at any point in time. You can vary. I don't think you have to even commit to a full year's membership. You can sort of have a part year membership to a certain point of the year. What I would say is they do provide some good advice around numerous areas that would be very helpful, I think, for the new town clerk and any appointed officers and the town members once elected going forward for a period of time. And I think they'll be helpful in negotiating with the unitary council as well. So I definitely have them for that period of time. And as we say, the newly elected members can work out then if there's a time that they don't require membership at a point in the future, and that could be switched off then.
Thank you, Mr. Darcy.
I think it's a case, isn't it? You either have it or don't have it, because it's not like there's different levels of membership. So, Councillor Laura Lorman.
Thank you, Chairman. One other question I had. I was part of the staffing committee and part of the lengthy discussions with the various options we were given by NCalc, just by the way, who promoted that we had to spend this amount of money to attract the right caliber town clerk. And I think the other option was plus 2 additional people, I believe, to assist, or 2 part-timers or something. There was quite a mix. But my question is, Chairman, these 102,000, is that still subject to NI contributions and pension contributions for those employees? Thank you.
I think the answer is in paragraph 510 of the paper, which said that the staffing budget was 79,123 plus on costs of approximately 22,876 in the staffing papers. And looking through it, the only band that was LC2 was mentioned, which is 28 to 32,000, but it recommended LC4, which is, as we mentioned, 50 to 60 odd thousand. Councillor Francis, you've still got your hand up. I don't know whether that's an old hand or.
It was an old hand.
Okay. Couple of others that have been legal. Presumably that's just a contingency in case anything happens. 5,000, which is sensible to have. I was a bit concerned about refreshments as well, given that even the Borough Council doesn't have any refreshments really. That one can perhaps be put to a contingency.
We can amend that.
Yeah, and so apart from the concerns about the salary level, which maybe would go to a discussion at the Town Council reflecting our concerns at the full Town Council, any other comments or amendments to the budget that's proposed on Appendix 2? Okay, so we're happy with accepting that with a comment that it needs to be discussed at the full Town Council.
Councillor Henley's got his hand up, I think.
Oh, I've got.
Yeah, I did have my hand up, but you didn't. I should have gone like that at the same time, Chair. I apologise.
Yeah.
I know. I was going to say what my gut feel would be to reduce down by the amount of reserves, but the reality is, given the scale that we're talking, we'd only be talking about reducing down the increase by £1.50 per household. So I can't see that being much of a value add, and I don't think that people of Wellingborough particularly notice it afterwards. I'm not wild about the percentage increase, but as an absolute increase, it's quite defendable. And let's be fairly clear, for the first 6 to 9 months, I imagine we'll be spending most of the time with the new us at the Northants, trying to work out what we can and can't transfer over.
Well, we can discuss the recommendation there. Yes, that's the other half of it, isn't it? That the Band D is currently £4.24 and would rise with this to £11.81. Actually, the other comment I made about elections was made earlier, but it would be sensible to have a quarter of the predicted cost of elections each year and have a reserve built up. Would be the sensible way, and that would be the normal way, I think.
It would,
but we're not in that situation. Okay, so our councillors, if you could all say aye if you're happy with that.
I think
first
Councillor
part.
Norman's waving her hand.
Wait, she's not there again, is she? Right.
Can you turn around, dear?
I do apologise, Chairman, but you skipped over options 2 and 3, and option 2 has got the events for Wellingborough, and option 3 the events plus the market. My question is, if we were not taking that over, what will happen to the market? Is anybody going to run it? I presume at the moment North have got a contract to do that, and the other one is who would be running any events. Would that mean there will be no events, Chairman? Thank you.
I was going to come to the long-term future, things like events in the market as the second part, really. But yeah, as you asked the question, perhaps we can go into discussion about the sort of longer term and events in particular. I think the answer on the market is that it would be there, but we would try and take the charter and leave the costs of it with Northants and North in their contract, but us for the town council to take the charter. Events is a slightly different matter. We perhaps need to talk about it more length. So I don't know if any officers got a comment before we do.
Yeah, so you've covered the Norse bit quite well, actually, Councillor Lorman. All I'd add is that the Norse contract runs until March 22, so it would probably be easier to leave that for the next year anyway, and then when that comes out of Norse and back into, the likelihood is back into the unitary, although a piece of work is being done around the future operation of the services Norse deliver and what the unitary are inheriting from the other districts and borough councils as well. So that will inform that piece of work. But if it does come back, it would probably save any 2p issues around Norse involved in the town council. Events as well. We've got an events officer currently at the borough council again that will 2p into Northamptonshire and will deliver events at the best we can around the current situation and how that evolves next year as well. But again, there's budget for that, so that will continue as part of the unitary. Again, I would guess that would be one of the first things the unitary would probably discuss about passing to the town council.
First comment, beyond the market, there are projects going through development committee at the moment about renovating, rejigging the market. So I think it's probably best left with North Northamptonshire while that goes through. As to events, I'm sure we want to do events, but we haven't had a chance yet to talk about the level of events and the level of input. So, for instance, Party in the Park, there's about a 30 grand budget in there, and that's more than the town council could handle, obviously, at the moment, I would think. If we go to events, any other councillors got comments on that one?
I think Councillor
Henley, yeah, just gone up, yeah.
There you go. No, I felt we'd already kind of discussed this before going on to. Turns out we hadn't actually discussed this. In terms of both events and the market, I don't think there's an appetite yet, if I'm honest, and I think it would be a bit unfair on the town to ask them to chip in with such a big increase when we don't have full plans for it. Certainly once we have a town council that has had 9 months of experience under its belt, they will be in a far stronger place to then go out and have those conversations about what we can run in terms of events and progress on that basis. I would have said that this, I'm not, as I said already, I'm not wild about the percentage increase, but an absolute one I can defend on the fact that, yes, this will give you something to start with. And that's all we can really do at this stage. Anything other than that just feels, given with everything else that's going to happen with the unitary, whereby they're going to be asking Wellingborough residents to pay best part of 7%, not 5%, asking them to pay much more than this feels quite unworthy at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Henley. I did think that was implicit in your previous answer, so that's why I hadn't moved on to it. Councillor Laura Lorman.
Thank you, Chairman. As a new town council will be established on the 6th of May next year, what is happening to the Vendor Walk in the event that the Vendor Walk would take place once again in Wellingborough if the COVID situation changes? Because the Vendor Walk, if my memory is correct, has been a loss running event every single year. So have you made any provision for that, please? Thank you.
Yeah, we've got the budget as part of BCW's budget that's fed into Northamptonshire. So there is budget to do the events. This was all based on the cost from, obviously we haven't done much this year, so it's based on last year's cost. In fairness, I think the Wendell Walk cost, the net cost has gone down over time, but you're right, Councillor Lorman, it is still a cost to the council.
Presumably, Mr. Darcy, there would be an option, and obviously in the early days, the council wouldn't be in a position to run, it just wouldn't be organised in time to do all the planning that's needed. But there would be an option for it to run it and just have a subsidy from the North Northamptonshire Council of whatever is in the budget. So just money fired back to the town council, even if it hadn't been actually put in the town council's budget.
Definitely, and that could apply to numerous services depending on discussions next year. Yeah.
Okay. So are we? Is everybody content that we go for option one at this stage? Mr. Henley's nodding. Oh, everybody, yeah. I think Mr. Councillor Weatherall's nodding. Councillor Francis, Councillor Elemental, yeah. Okay. So would we like to, as part of that, to have perhaps a brief discussion about some of the options for functions that we might like to take over in the future? So I mean, I made one or two notes that things that other councils, other town councils around us are doing. Some of which are a bit more long term, some of which are short term. Some are doing information and tourism. We have some street lighting in the town that is not Balfour Beatty. It belongs to the borough council, therefore it may be something that town council wants to do to improve. Street furniture might be something that the town wants to use to enhance. Some of the local councils have sports pitches, maintain them and charge them. Some have town centre toilets. Events we've mentioned already, the market we've mentioned, civic functions, and that will involve the town council having a mayor, and I think that's, from my conversation, that's something that we would want to continue. Twinning we've mentioned. Community grants, it might be that some more focused community grants were of interest. Certainly councillors have expressed an interest in taking over Swanspool House and Gardens, and that might include the pavilion to use for rent. Croydon Gardens. Allotments is one that we mentioned earlier. We do get an income, as we discovered the other day, from that, and that would protect them against development, because some of the allotments are in the local plan for potential development. So it may be that would protect them as well as getting income. Quite a lot of councils do cemeteries, control their CCTV. Part of advertising could be a town app, and some do their own bus stops where there are things. Some have business support functions. One subsidises a dial-a-ride, and a couple have their own PCSO. So there's a number of things there that are options. And obviously this is long term. I'm not suggesting that we dive into them next year, but I don't know if any councillor's got any yeses, nos, long terms. Councillor Henley's looking very dubious.
I think Councillor Francis wanted to speak. Sorry.
Councillor Francis was first.
Chair, I mean, they all sound reasonable. I think with regards to the cemetery, because it is such a successful business, it might be one of the things that the unitary may want to hold on to. But with all the others, yep, they sound reasonable, and it's one of those things that, as we grow as a town council, we may be able to take more off the unitary council, or get them to subsidise it or something like that. So I think it's a great wish list. It's good that we're thinking in that direction, but I think it's also one of those that is for the medium to long term in terms of taking on all or some of these of the things that you've mentioned.
I think you have to differentiate between the cemeteries and the crematorium, I think, because the crematorium's a limited company that may or may not cease to be a limited company and go into the general thing, but there's a differentiation. Councillor Laura Lorman was next.
Are you sure, Chairman? I'm not sure whether Councillor Henley. Okay, I fully agree with Councillor Francis. I fully agree with Councillor Francis. Since a moment ago, when we established the Shadow Town Council, my biggest fear was that we were setting up a Shadow Town Council or a town council for the future, and burdening it with so much that they couldn't handle, and setting something up for failure is not fair. There are discussions starting with the North Northants Shadow from the chairmanship, and to then bring that to this committee and to the full council to decide what really are the options that we should be looking at in the future, but that is outside of this. I have got one point though, Chairman, on 8.5. I think there's a typo in the third line, Northamptonshire Council, on the 1st of April 2021, not 2020. If that could please be amended. Thank you.
Good spot.
I think you're right. Yep. Councillor Henley is next.
I am. Yes, thank you, Chair. No, I wasn't expecting us to then go into talking about the long term or the medium term tonight. This felt like a meeting just to get us over this immediate hump. And the reality is we don't know who will be on that council in May. And I know that there are, in addition to people around this room who are willing to stand, I know that there are some I don't want to say non-political, but non-affiliated people of the town who are interested to stand. So therefore they will have their own views as well. It will have to be a careful negotiation between whoever gets elected to this council with whoever gets elected to the Northants Council. But let's be clear that the shadow authority, the unitary, won't want to give up the really good stuff without there being really good reasons, and the town council should only take on anything from the unitary with a budget that's sensible as well. There's no point taking, and in the past, for example, the borough council has taken on things such as running the tip, because when the county council dropped it, the town council won't have that sort of money to do that. So I know that I'm preaching to the choir on that one, because I know I've spoken to Sean about this a few times, but Sean may not be involved in these conversations. I may not be involved in these conversations, depends on how the public view anything. But that's been my default position, that budgets must come with them. Thank you, Chair.
No, I think I only introduced it as a discussion point because, you know, I think it just shows for when this report goes to the full town council that it's there for a discussion, and that we have covered it and discussed it and not discounted it, but put it in the, you know, appropriate place. And of course, then if anybody has an idea that something needs to be brought forward, they can use this paper as a discussion point. Any other comments? Okay, so we had two recommendations. One that was we consider the report, which we've done, and the other was that option one be recommended. So I know we did all agree earlier, but we're all happy with those two recommendations, that we noted it, and
Aye.
Aye.
that's the, unless anybody else has got anything else relevant to the agenda, and that's the close of the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Before you close, Chairman, may I speak?
You may.
Thank you, Chairman. May I take the opportunity as Chairman of the Shadow Town Council to thank everybody, our officers who worked extremely hard, not only this year, but it's been an extremely challenging time for you all. You had to work under such different circumstances the whole year, and members as well. So with that, a huge thank you from myself on behalf of all councillors, not just from the Shadow Town Council, and wishing you a Merry Christmas and a very happy and safe New Year. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I think we all echo that. Thank you, and good night.
Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas,
Good night.
everybody.
Merry